Yeah, a little bit of housekeeping. This is being recorded for YouTube, just so people who were not able to make it to the meeting are able to see the discussion and maybe put in their thoughts in the comments. The heat does turn on every once in a while, and it sounds very loud. It sounds like somebody just kicked on a vacuum cleaner, but that's just my heat. I'm also live on TikTok, so if you see me looking over here, I'm not ignoring you. I promise. I'm talking to people over here who are commenting. And of course, as most book clubs go, you don't have to speak. If you have not read the book, you're still welcome here. We will be talking about spoilers, of course. If you could use the hand raising option when wanting to chat on Zoom, there's not too many of us in here tonight, so we might not run into this problem. But it is in the reactions tab at the very bottom, and you're able to put your hand up. And of course, people are going to have differing opinions. So if somebody says something that hurts your feelings, have a nice discussion about it. Don't start yelling at everybody. That hasn't happened yet, but I'm waiting on the day. I'm sure it will at some point. And as always, I'm trying to implement this new thing of a palate cleanser, because at the end of some of these meetings, and I see this especially happening at the end of January for our January book, sometimes the conversations can get kind of heavy. So at the end, I like to just do a little palate cleanser where we hang out and talk about everything else except for that book at the moment. And also my boyfriend is in the living room, so if you hear somebody giggling, laughing, I don't have anybody hiding in a closet. So for those of you who are joining us on TikTok or in the Zoom session that have not read the book and don't really know what is going on, so our December books are usually discussed early January, because at the end of December I am out of town. So here we are discussing our December book, which was The FACEMAKER, One Surgeon's Battle to Mend the Disfigured Soldiers of World War I by Lindsay Fitzharris. I would show you the book if I knew where I put the dust jacket. I just have a brown book, so it's kind of pointless. Yeah, let me read you the synopsis very quick. And this is just for people who don't know what exactly we read. So Lindsay Fitzharris is actually a award-winning author of The Butchering Art, which I have not read, but I do have, which is the compelling true story of a visionary surgeon, this is the FACEMAKER, who rebuilt the faces of the First World War's injured heroes, and in the process ushered in the modern era of plastic surgery. Now it looks like, let's see, on book clubs, the average rating for this book, because book clubs let you do 1 to 10, was a 7.6. So I think people did enjoy it. Now in the meeting here, did anybody not like it? I love to start off with the people who really didn't like it. I think everybody enjoyed it for the most part. Cool. So yeah, if you enjoyed it, let me know. Go ahead and make sure you're unmuted and raise your hand if you would like to talk first, and just kind of give us your overall thoughts. Sure. Yeah. Joanna?
I don't know what's going on. I'd heard of the people who made masks, the metal masks that attach to glasses or ears or whatever, but I hadn't heard of the surgeon, so I found this especially fascinating.
Yeah.
And her book, The Butchering Art, is also really good.
I know, I haven't read it yet. I really wanted to read it before I read this one, so I had a little bit of a reference. Do you think they're pretty comparable in writing styles, or vastly different, just as good, or?
I think they're just as good. I personally liked the second one, The FACEMAKER, better because I was more interested in the topic. But yeah, I'd say that they are comparably good.
Awesome. I love to hear that. That's actually one of my questions tonight, was how does it compare to The Butchering Art?
Yeah.
Yes, Carrie.
I really loved it. I know a lot of random facts about World War I now, so I guess I can be in the like retired dads club now. Right. So yeah, I loved the writing style and all of the medical history about it, stuff I didn't even know, or stuff I didn't even know I wanted to know, and it was just really compelling. So I loved every bit of it.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting. Did anybody else want to share their thoughts on it before I get into my thoughts? Yeah, is it Kiara? Am I saying that right?
Yeah. Most people don't get it like on the first try. That's really cool. Okay. I agree with Carrie, because I am not much of like a war facts type of person. It kind of like sometimes they can be a little too like detailed for me. But this book, I thought that it was pretty good with giving you details, but not bogging you down with so much information that just confuses you. So I really like the writing style too. I thought it was pretty good.
Nice. Yeah, I went to a college with a Kiara. That's how I was assuming it was pronounced, Chiara. Yeah, no, I agree. I think it was neat. I for some reason wasn't loving it as much as I thought I would. And I went actually to Goodreads to try and figure out what I wasn't really liking about it, because I was doing the audiobook because of how busy I've been recently, and I was actually pretty under the weather at the end. The air or the heat's about to kick on, so sorry if it gets loud. I was under the weather, and for some reason the last thing I want to do when I'm sick is read, which I feel like is ample opportunity to be reading, and just laying there, but my eyes just don't want to do the work, so I just listen to audiobooks. But I wasn't like soaking in the information, and I just found myself going back quite frequently to like listen to old chapters because I didn't like remember anything. And again, this also, yeah, it's a topic I really didn't know anything about. One of my favorite things that about this past book was when we started reading it, one of my friends, Ashley, in the book club, I think she texted me and she was like, wow, I didn't know anything about World War I, and I'm just now realizing that. It was very, so yeah, I didn't really, obviously I know a good amount about World War II, but nothing about World War I. So that was, it's also getting a nice little history lesson. Yeah, I mean, I thought it was definitely good. I rated it 4 out of 5. And I think, you know, we've read better books in the book club. I do think some of them have stood out more than this one, but I did think it was absolutely interesting. And I'm of course going to read The Butchering Art because I really loved her writing style. I thought it was very approachable, and there's just so much to it that I think one of the things I saw in a 4-star review was she's casting a very wide net, and a lot of people didn't feel like she stuck to one thought. But, and I agree with that to an extent, but at the same time, there's just so much information, and she couldn't just discuss one topic and then kind of keep to it, because she probably, you know, she had to go off on like a side tangent and discuss this because again, there's just so much happening on World War One. But I do think it was very good. I do think it was very good, and I think it was right up the alley of the book club. And some parts are pretty gruesome. I think the very first couple of chapters there, when we're learning about, you know, the pilots and I mean, also people just not, I'm like, this is the problem I had with Radium Girls too, was just like teeth, like hearing about bad teeth. I don't know why, it just makes me like want to turn inside out. So hearing, you know, people have never touched, like these soldiers have never touched a toothbrush before, I was like, oh god. I hate it. So yeah, it was one of the gorier books that we have read, and I thought that was I like that. So I thought that was very on par with the book club. But yeah, I mean, that's I liked it though. I think it was pretty straightforward with what it was trying to say, and it seemed like somebody posted in our meetings tab that it won a couple of awards, and people were putting it on their favorites of 2022, which is awesome. But yeah, I'm glad it was for the most part liked. That's awesome. Anybody else want to add anything else? A really cool fact that they learned, or something along those lines? Yes, Joanna.
I keep raising my hand like this because I'm on an iPad and it's hard for me to figure out where the things are.
Sorry.
This is a moderate aside. I've seen 3 really good World War I movies if you want to learn more about it.
Yes.
The first is a brand new version of All Quiet on the Western Front, which was written by a German. And in theory, it tells the German side of the war, but essentially it's an anti-war novel because war is the same for everybody. It's all these young men getting slaughtered. And then another is a recent movie called 1917. I think Sam Mendes was the director. And then another one is actually a documentary by Peter Jackson, the Lord of the Rings guy. And it's called They Shall Not Grow Old. Is that what's called? They Shall Not Grow Old. And what's fascinating about it is when it was filmed, there was no sound. And they used lip readers to determine what the men are saying, and they have voice actors saying what the men are saying according to lip readers. And I learned so much about World War I that way. It's all about these young British men who were fighting in the war. Anyway, that's my 2 cents worth, and I'll be quiet now.
You're fine. I wrote those down. I'm gonna try. I've heard of 1917. I never saw it. But I love people being able to lip read stuff like that too. That's so fascinating. Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, because I really didn't know that much about. I mean, I'm sure I was taught about it in school, but a lot of stuff in history class, unfortunately, just flew right over my head. It's not my strong subject. Anybody else? It's always hard. It's always hard to discuss books that everybody, for the most part, liked, because the meetings are so short where we're like, yeah, this was good. It's like, there's nothing really else to add. We ran into that with Caitlin Dowdy. Yes.
Yeah, one thing I was gonna say is that you said like in history class we like learned about this, but it like flew out of our heads. I think reading books like this is so important because it puts everything into context, and then you get these like, I mean, she didn't have firsthand accounts, but she had like, you know, stories of certain soldiers and their certain experiences, and I think that's so important in learning history, is just like having, even though this was a very specific lens on World War I, still learning history in this context was really helpful for me. And I bored all my friends with World War I facts the whole time I was reading this. So but yeah, I really enjoyed that history and context lens of it.
Yeah, if you put anything morbid on top of it, I guess I'll read it.
Right.
I'll be interested in it. Yeah, I love that. I try and refrain from talking. Well, I like to boast about the book club. I really do. I like to tell people about it because I love having, you know, friends join. I think that's awesome. But there's definitely like, it's definitely for a specific person. So I'm not like singing about it from the rooftops, because I have gotten some strange looks before, like, oh no, do you guys read like Colleen Hoover? No, we do not. There is a book club out there for you, but this is not the one. Yeah, I love that. I've heard really good things about January's book too, which I'm very excited to start that as well. I actually finished the FACEMAKER today. When I was out grabbing lunch. I always do that to myself. I wait until like the last minute to start the book club, but that way it's fresh, so I kind of know. But yeah, if there's nothing else, then we can go ahead and wrap it. Sorry this one was so short. It was a good book. I don't really know what else to add to it. There's not really much to dissect or theorize or break down. It was a good book. Yeah, Joanna.
I thought that the inclusion of the photos was really, I mean, how, as horrifying as they were, it really showed the horrific extent of the injuries. I mean, things that are really hard for us to imagine. Mm-hmm. And to try and imagine the pain the people were in. Like, wasn't there some story about a guy lying in the mud for something like 3 days where everyone thought he was dead? Then they finally found him and turned him over and realized he wasn't dead. And and then the way the plastic surgeon was able to, I mean, obviously everyone is still going to look pretty hideous post-surgery, but considering the before and after, that was just astounding.
Yeah.
How successful he was.
Yeah. I actually, we have an Instagram page where I kind of post a picture of the book and then post our reading guide. And sometimes I'll post a couple of pictures from the book itself, or just the time, or like a newspaper article or something. And I posted a picture of the faces, and I actually got like a strike. It was like too violent or something like that. And I'm like, oh no, it goes against everything they were wanting to do. But yeah, there was a lot of really, I love how she mentioned it a couple times where it was brought up that war veterans are almost applauded in a way, or they are in a way, if they've survived something like that, and they are missing a limb, but for some reason when it comes to their face, it like they said women like fainted around them, and like people were so scared to look at him, but it's like that guy probably took that's crazy. I mean, that's crazy that people would have that kind of reaction. Yes, Kiara.
Sorry. I was gonna say the same thing, because it was so sad, because these guys went through so much in the war, and some of them were really young, and then people are over here like casting them aside and making them feel like less than worthy. But the surgeon the whole time was very, professional, and he treated them, with the kindest, attitude, and it was just amazing to me. But that just hurt. That hurt, knowing that they felt like that, and they were pushed aside in society after fighting so hard to protect everybody. It's just so sad.
Just did so much just to be later shunned. It's like, I mean, I think people are fortunately today a little bit more accepting, and would not be as harsh. Hi, Becky.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I haven't finished the book yet, so but I am enjoying it. And I was thinking about that a lot too, about what we were just saying, and then how she was kind of talking about our face is like the first thing people see, and you can read so much from people's faces. And so just how it is very sad, but just how disarming it is when someone has a facial difference, because we interact with each other's faces like that's like our first impression of people. It's how we read emotion, and all that stuff. And so, yeah, there's sort of like an extra kind of psychology that goes along with when you have a facial injury, as opposed to not having an arm or something like that,
It's almost, it gets scary for people, like, how we treat Uncanny Valley too, where it's like, and I think I saw somebody on TikTok talk about this actually, which of course that means it's true, but the idea that Uncanny Valley kind of scares us the most is because they could almost be deceased, but there's like moving and talking, and that's why it kind of scares us so much. There's so much here, and that's our front. That's like that's who we are. That's like just our face, and so having these soldiers have to go through this and go through war and then go through this is just
right.
It's terrible, and you feel so bad for them, and it's again,
and
like, applauded otherwise.
Right. And I think on some level we can sort of imagine what it might be like to lose a limb or to be injured in some way, but it's almost impossible to imagine like looking in the mirror and not seeing your face. Right. So it's just so foreign to think about, and then to be confronted with it in reality, it's almost like we just naturally reject that, because it's just so incomprehensible that could even happen. And what would that mean? Right. And would you even want to live anymore? Right. So
plus all the things you suffered during the war too, like that part of it too is just like and what you were saying too earlier, Carrie, about the accounts of, I mean, she had so much information on so many different people, like quoting them, like he once wrote this, and I'm like, where did you get a hold of that? Where did you find that? Joanna, you had your hand raised too.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I worked in an office in a hospital for almost 20 years. And I remember when I first got there were so many things I'd never encountered because I'd never been in the medical field. And I remember the first time I saw somebody with their head shaved and stitches pretty much all the way across their head, where obviously the skin had been pulled back and the skull had been cut open. They stuck the skull back. I had to go away, and I thought I was going to throw up. It's just really shocking when you see someone's appearance so violently changed from what you expect. So as horrible as it was to know that these poor men suffered as pariahs, I mean, I can certainly understand how it would happen.
Yeah. And once you just gain a whole other respect for Gillies and the people who were wanting to help. And there's a really sad story, one of the maybe the 30-40% of the way in, at least, of a guy who had gone through so much. I can't remember exactly. Guy who'd gone through the war, then gone through so much and didn't survive the anesthesia. I think it was like they had a really early version of when they were using, what was it, cocaine for a little while to help put these people under, which is bananas to me. And they had an anesthesia of sorts, but he didn't wake up from it, and he had to like send a letter to the family saying like, I tried everything I could. He, I was like, oh God, oh no, I hate it. Pause the audiobook, put on the song, change it. Yeah, it was rough. And I just feel so bad when I was reading it, because it wasn't like I wasn't enjoying it. I just wasn't. I think I blame it on me being a mood reader. I'm in such like a sci-fi mood at the moment that the only things that are really sticking, I'm reading like 8 books at once right now because I can't find anything that I'm actually enjoying. And again, it's not that I wasn't enjoying this. There's just something about it that wasn't really sinking its teeth in me, which is such a weird way of saying that, but it's true. I just wasn't absolutely obsessed with it like I have been previous Morbidly Curious books. But it was still great. It was still really great. So I landed on a 4-star. Yeah, anything else? Nothing. We're not getting any comments on TikTok, so.
I was just going to quickly say, I think it's interesting, even through time, the struggle of veterans might look different through the years, but it's still the same, right? There was this in World War I, World War II, and then like Vietnam soldiers coming back had their own, were pariahs for different reasons, bad or right or wrong. My dad's a Vietnam vet. Soldiers not even wanting to come home in their dress blues because they didn't want anyone to know, so they wouldn't be called baby killer or whatever. And then even now, like the suicide rate of veterans is horrific, right? So we still, over 100 years later, don't know how to help people coming back. Right? And we still send young men and women now off to war, and we still haven't figured out how to support them when they come back. No. Especially mentally.
And injured, injured mentally, physically, any of that. Yeah.
So
good point.
It's a sad line through history, but I think that it's kind of important to make that connection. I mean, a veteran shouldn't be out sleeping on the street, right? And why is that? And why aren't we doing it more? And why aren't we? And I know, we try or, whatever, but we still haven't quite figured out how to do that.
Yeah.
Well.
At all. On TikTok, we for those that are asking, we read The FACEMAKER by Lindsay Fitzharris for the Morbidly Curious book club. That was our December book of last year. We're just now getting around to discussing it. Carrie.
Yeah, what I found really striking was that the medical facilities couldn't keep up with the types of injuries that these, like the weapons were so advanced and the medicine was so far behind. And that just goes to show you like where the priority was and the fact that there was only like a handful of these plastic surgeons actually treating these like gruesome wounds. And then the countless people who died in the tents, just like on the field. It's just like, that really struck me as like really sad and harrowing. Like, we care about weapons more than these people who are using.
Right. I mean, to the point where they didn't even really they had to come up with plastic surgery. I mean, they exactly were so behind in everything. Yeah. Then and everything when it came to medicine, and they clearly didn't have the right tools for the anesthesia or anything like that too. So it's the heat's about to turn back on. yeah, it was really devastating to hear about all of that, for sure.
It's like, it's good that we made a lot of medical advances because of this. I guess you could like shine a light on that and be like, yes, like
Yep.
forced to make all of these medical advances because of all of these insane injuries from all these insane kind of weapons. So
Yeah.
But
Bullets can
medical
do a lot.
advances. Mhm.
Bullets can do a lot of damage, for sure.
Mhm.
Michelle.
Yeah, just coming back to the advances that were made because of this, I really liked that at the end it kind of highlighted the view of plastic surgery overall now because of this, like just how that continued to advance. I thought it was really cool that they added that in because it's like, yeah, we're trying to fix things, but it's also just to make people feel better.
Are you in the medical field, Michelle?
No.
Can you mix up with somebody else then? I swear we had a person join a live one time and that was like, I'm getting off my shift at the hospital.
Oh no.
And I was like, well, you work in the medical field. So, never mind. My fault.
It was also really fascinating from the part I've read so far about, right, we hear plastic surgery now and we just think about more shallow reasons people get plastic surgery. I'm not
Yeah.
ragging on anybody who's chosen to do that.
Right.
But you know, there was sort of this shift in my just thinking about the actual medical necessity for plastic surgery as opposed to
A decision.
Yeah. So, and the weirdness of like the reason people are able to have plastic surgery now is because of the advances made because of something really horrific. But now we can change how we look if we want to.
Yeah.
Or get liposuction or whatever the case may be, but it really was born from medical necessity. And I also thought real quick the dentistry part was really interesting too, about not having dentists but like how back in the day soldiers needed to be able to bite off their
I was like, I was trained.
Yeah, I was like, this is so like, I did not know any of this. I like history, but I'm not like a war buff.
Yeah.
So I don't know about that kind of stuff. But
Same.
Yeah.
Just know a lot about cults. That's my thing.
Yeah, me too. And true crime. So anyways, I'm finding the book so far just really fascinating. I honestly, I don't think it's a book I would have picked up on my own.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the fun thing about book clubs too, right? Is you read something you might not otherwise pick.
Right.
But she's a really good writer, and I don't know if anyone else has read her first book, but I'm kind of curious to pick that up now as well.
Joanna said she had.
Okay.
I have it. It's somewhere behind me. I just picked up the audiobook too because it's an Audible exclusive, and I think it was on sale recently.
I see.
So that's how I have to do books these days. I haven't been able to like physically read anything in a while. I need somebody to read it to me because I'm just doing way too much.
Fair enough. I'm
sort
of the opposite. I don't do the audiobook thing because my mind wanders. I have to physically read for it to sink in. So
jealous.
Well, I get jealous of the audiobook people sometimes because they'll have like, I read 100, 200 books last year. And I'm like, how the hell did you do that? And it's like, oh, because
that was me.
Audiobooks. I'm like, oh, okay, well.
Yeah, that was everybody's first question was, how did you read 200 books last year? And I was like, because I
it's
have
amazing. Yeah, it's amazing.
Going all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm able to pay attention to it. I don't know. My brain is able to multitask like that.
Good. Yeah.
But physical book, I open up a book and TikTok sounds start playing in my head. Like I can't just focus on the words in front of me. Like I need a focus playlist or something like keeping me centered, or else my brain is just like ding ding like ping or
not to if this is too personal, let me know. Do you have ADHD?
I've never been diagnosed with it.
Okay.
I don't
Because
think I have
under
it.
stimulation is like totally is absolutely a thing.
I'm sure I have some form of it, but compared to my boyfriend, who is definitely ADHD, I'm not that bad. Like,
Fair enough.
he will, I mean, poor guy, he's brilliant, but will like how, just he can't. I'm surprised he remembers my name half the time. So
Well, and it can show up differently. It can show up differently between genders too. So but anyways, because I also kind of have those tendencies, and
right.
I sometimes, it's like I'm either overstimulated or understimulated. I'm never just stimulated.
I'm
really
constantly
frustrated.
overstimulated. And I'm sure I just never been checked for it and diagnosed with it. I've
Yeah.
never, I mean, I've figured out what works for me, so I don't really see the
Right.
point. I don't really want any medicine or anything like that. So I'm sure I
Yeah.
do.
And I'm not on medication or anything. And I didn't really know kids, becoming a parent really drove up the overstimulation.
Yeah, that's my reason, my child-free reason 5006 is that very
Yeah. Okay. I'll be quiet now.
You're
Sorry.
good. I love it. Joanna, I had your hand raised.
I was just going to say, when you were talking about all the medical innovations because of World War I, there were all these medical innovations in the beginning of the Iraq and Afghanistan wars because so many people were having their limbs blown off by IEDs. And usually research hospitals are clamoring for money. They're really poor. And all of a sudden, the Department of Defense was just pouring money into medical research. And they came up with all kinds of amazing prosthetics, prostheses, things like computer controlled legs that will do the walking for you. And I don't know, so many things. Anyway, it was the whole issue of this horrible awfulness has spurred all these innovations that wouldn't have happened otherwise.
I will say, it's on the note of that, it's really weird. I've discovered, because I just really started actively reading in the past couple of years. Like I've always been a reader, but the pandemic like really kicked that off. And I'm still trying to like find what genres appeal to me most. And clearly morbid nonfiction is up there, but sci-fi is big for me too. I really love reading sci-fi, and I'm in the middle of this wonderful series right now, but it's so fascinating jumping from a book like The FACEMAKER, where people are having surgeries and plastics, go into like a sci-fi book where people just like get in a gel bath and they're fine. Like it's just such a fun spectrum of things that I read. But the girl in this series, the Protectorate series by Megan E. O'Keefe, I cannot recommend it enough. But the main girl is missing most of her leg, and she has like a different little prosthetic that she just like pops on, and that's fine. And if there's ever a piece broken, the AI ship takes care of it. And it's just, I kept going from that to this, and I'm like, wow, this is quite I love this. I love this so much. One day we will get to this point where you could just throw somebody in a bath and they'll wake up totally fine. We can only hope. Yeah. Anything else? I'm glad everybody likes it though. That's always good. It's always really interesting hearing people just absolutely dog on books when they don't like them, but it is also nice to have people really enjoy them too. Really, I love our Hell in the Heartland discussion was like 2 hours long. That was a good time. Was that a hand, Joanna?
Yeah. Several months ago, I started following Lindsay Fitzharris on Twitter because I actually really love medical goriness and war goriness. And
you'll fit right in.
within 6 months ago, she suddenly said on Twitter, and she's young, she's like 40, which to me is young. And she said something like, "Oh my God, I've just been diagnosed with breast cancer." And so on Twitter, she took us all through all the surgery and with photos of her lying in bed with tubes coming out of her and all this stuff. And she's done really, really well. And I think she's having a lot of problems with radiation where it makes her body swell up and her skin is burned and dried
Yeah.
and cracked and whatever. I don't know. I've never had radiation, so I don't know, but it sounds pretty awful. But anyway, her
seen
Twitter
it.
account is fascinating.
I'll have to follow her. I've locked myself out on Twitter on my computer because I can't remember my login, but I'm still good on my phone, so I'll do that afterwards. That's terrible, though. I hate to hear that. I'm glad she's okay, but
She was talking about the irony of her spending her adult life doing medical research, medical history research, and then to get slammed with this.
Mhm.
I'm sure she asked the surgeons if she could have like a camera or something to like watch the surgery afterwards. Like,
Yeah,
Well, she definitely asked for anesthetic.
yeah. I'd be curious to know if she felt like that helped her cope
yeah,
or not. You know, sometimes you can know too much.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's better not to know. But yeah. Do you listen to podcasts, Joanna?
No,
You should listen to Dr. Death if you're into medical goriness. It's a Wondery podcast. It
Ooh.
is, I mean, it makes me sweat. It made me sweat listening to it. It's so like horrible. And then they made it into a mini series, I think, maybe on Hulu, and it's got
I've
what's his
seen that.
face in it? Pacey from Dawson's Creek. Joshua Jackson. So anyways, but it's a very well done podcast, and Michelle, yeah, I've listened to, it's one of these things where it's like, I don't know why I've listened to it more than once, but I've listened to it like 3 times because it's just such a brutal story, you know.
There's some Michelle in chat said I love Dr. Death, and then my friend Emily in chat on TikTok said I love Dr. Death. Two people say it at the same time.
Yeah, but it's just kind of basically about this kind of sociopath spinal surgeon and the havoc he wreaked.
Was it like a rose on it or something?
Yeah, or it's something red.
No, it's got it. Yeah, it's the scalpel.
Yeah, but it's very well done, and there's subsequent seasons, but the first season's the best.
Replaced Jamie Dornan. Not watching it. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
And I think Christian Slater might be in it too. Like it's got, you know, a heavy cast.
Yeah, I'll have
but
to
anyway, yeah, I'm also fascinated by that kind of thing. So,
and that's why we're here.
Yep, 100%.
This is you're with the right people. This is what we do best.
I was kind of scared to look at the pictures, but I agree with what Joanna said earlier. It's very remarkable, the progress or the transition. You know, you can still, for a lot of the men, you could still see they had been injured, but it's just not as catastrophic as it was. And then the guy that they talk about in the prologue, who I think he got shot like through the face.
Oh, yeah.
His pictures, it didn't even look like anything had ever even happened to him.
Yeah, that first couple chapters, I was like, damn, this is one of the goriest books we have read.
Yeah, I know. And like just talking about all the blood, and then even like talking about how like they had to learn to like carry them on their stomachs so they wouldn't like choke on their this
awful.
That was awful.
This is really intense. Yeah.
Couldn't even get them to safety because they choked on their own blood. Like they couldn't even, TikTok, don't report me. But yeah, didn't even have a chance. And like they finally were figuring out ways to like try to prevent that from happening. And also Kiara in the chat was saying, I love to be able to match the names in the book with the pictures. Yeah, same. That was that was nice to see, because how are you going to tell me they look a certain way and then not show me? I want to see. I want to see real quick. Carrie.
Go along with the pictures. I was trying to figure out in my mind how these tubes worked. The tubes of
God, I know.
The tubes of what is it, skin that he used to like connect pieces, and they said it looked like a jungle at one point because all of the patients had like these tubes of flesh coming off of them. So
Oh
I was
my
like, what the heck does that even look like? And there's a picture in the back.
How's your dinner right now, Becky?
Oh yeah.
It's fine. It's totally fine. Sorry, and I apologize for eating on camera.
Sorry.
But it's fine. No.
It doesn't bother me. I'm good,
That's
but
like a horror movie. That's horrifying.
Right, yeah, but it was like, this new process of the tubule things, but
Mm-hmm.
I was like, what the heck does it look like? And they finally had a guy in the pictures with one like connecting his cheek, which was
Mhm.
really cool. I was like, oh, that's what it
also-
looks like.
also on the topic of that too was a lot of the after surgery, a lot of the guys just couldn't eat. Like they were drinking their dinners. Like that's
No
just
jaw or
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the tube thing, I went to Google and looked up diagrams. It's like, how is this working?
This is just, I mean, it's remarkable.
And
With
to come up
burn-
with that. I mean, what a mind.
Right.
What a mind.
And then to
Yeah.
have
With burn-
somebody on the other side of the world come up with the same process, there's that whole debacle.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Which
and
was, it was really interesting how they just came up with the same thing. So-
there was the one story of the guy who I think had surgery, and then the surgeon had progressed in the past year or in the years to come, and wanted to read. The guy who originally had the surgery was kind of distraught with how he looked, so he just kind of, I think he literally changed his name and like moved somewhere else to like start a new life. And they
Mhm.
literally moved to Australia, and he ran into the surgeon in Australia, and the surgeon was like, I've improved, can I fix you, essentially? And the guy was like, I moved to Australia and you're here. He was like there for like a medical conference or something, and I felt so bad for him. Ugh.
With burn patients, like if their hands are burned, they'll cut an incision in the body and sew the hand into the
Right.
body, and it heals a lot faster. Then after a while, they pull the hand out and it's better.
I think if they did that on Grey's Anatomy one time.
Probably. That's, I
Which
guess, the only thing we have to compare, I guess, to something like this. I mean, we still get, veterans who come back and need some sort of plastic surgery, but I guess the only thing that we can compare it to that we probably see more often is burn victims,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
which is absolutely
Ugh.
terrifying. I know. So scary.
Well, and just like we were talking about, I don't know, just what did they call them? Something 20-minute, like it takes 20 minutes to like shoot down a new pilot or something, to be a kid, to be a 19-year-old kid and just know that you're going to die.
That was at the beginning where they were like, all pilots
Yeah,
take a pistol with them. And I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah. Or that
What?
like people would come up to boys or men in the street and like give them a feather to like basically tell them they were a coward because they weren't in the war. And I don't know, it's just because
That's
it
too
was some huge number of people in the British Army, like the biggest volunteer army like ever, and like I don't know, it's just kind of sometimes that's what gets me about war too, is just you almost can't comprehend the number of lives lost.
Yeah.
Like it's and then the ripple effect of all of that.
Yeah.
Right.
It's too much.
I had a history teacher in high school who said that none of his aunts ever married because there weren't any men around. They'd all died in World War II.
Yeah.
We heard that too. Like the guys were
Mhm.
having to go off and do stuff, and their wives were having babies, and they just never really saw their husbands.
Mhm.
They were off. They were busy at war. It's horrifying.
And just how it almost sounded so stupid how they were describing it in the beginning of like, I know about, Archduke Franz Ferdinand and everything, but then it was just like, well, we're all allies. So if so-and-so goes to war, then we have to go to war. And then if so, you know, and it just seems, it's almost like a high school fight, like a high school drama of like, well, picking sides and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's war, right? So it just, like I say, it almost sounded so stupid on the page of like, well, Russia was like, well,
yeah,
so-and-so attacked Germany or what, however it went. And so now we've got to go to war. And it's just sort of like,
it's like, why?
you know, and
here?
Of course there's a reason to be allied.
Yeah.
But like, do we really understand the agreements we're getting into when we do that? And everyone just thought it was just this little skirmish that would be over with in like, you know, and then all of a sudden it's a freaking world war. Like, it's just kind of nuts.
Yeah. How many people died?
I forget.
Lots.
Too many.
The total number of military and civilian casualties in World War I was around 40 million.
Mm-hmm.
Yikes. 20 million deaths and 21 million wounded. Jeez. The total number of deaths include 9.7 million military personnel and about 10 million civilians. That's bananas.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And the fact that you didn't follow rules, like, don't shoot down the medical ships, and then they shoot down the medical ships. Like,
it's that whole there's that quote, right? All's fair in love and war.
right. Yeah.
There are no rules, right?
And I was at the same, I finished it the other day, I finished it today. Sinkable, which was kind of interesting to read alongside this as well. Sinkable, my friend Emily got for me for the Morbidly Curious Secret Santa, about sunken ships as well too, and that was fascinating to read about. Yeah, I don't want to, like, not really feeling any nonfictions right now. Like, I'm definitely kind of burnt out because we do read a lot of really disturbing topics. So after a while, I'm like, I need a romance. I
get that.
Nice.
Or I know it sounds weird, but I'm like, I just need like a thriller, because I can read like a fast-paced thriller in like 2 days.
Yeah, something.
And that'll be like a palate cleanser, even though the subject matter is not that much different.
Yeah, right.
It's just,
at least I know it's fake.
yeah, it's fiction, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, because I don't know why, but because it seems like it would, but Tell Me Everything.
Mm-hmm.
I really struggled, and I set it aside for now. I don't know if I don't like the author, or I can't figure out why.
It was an interesting book, and I think that was another thing that we had a good 50-50 on, because I think a part of the problem too is people were going into it expecting one thing and not realizing that it was also part memoir, and there was going to be a lot about her, but also the stuff about her was just like so much that it's really polarized. Like, it was just very tough to read. I wound up really loving it once I like got past the point of like, you know, I had to remind myself what I was reading, and that sometimes helps. Like, I'm not just reading about this Title IX case, but there was actually, in our meeting too, there was a lot of people who kind of assisted in that process of like, okay, this is why I think the parts of her dating life were included and why that was really important. And once that kind of like got put into perspective, I was like, okay, I get it. But it is still like a heavy book. Like, there's a lot happening there.
Well, and I always joke that I like missed my calling to be a private eye. So I just thought it would be right up my alley. And then maybe it's because I also had just read finally Know My Name by Chanel Miller, who
I had to put that one down.
Survived Brock Turner's assault. And so I think it was just a lot. It was a lot of like college sexual assault at once. And I just kind of had to step away from it. But Chanel's memoir is beautiful. It's very difficult to read, but it is gorgeous.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had to put it down. I couldn't continue with it right now.
Yeah.
So this is a little
It's very
too easy. But
I
need
found it infuriating.
well, yeah.
yeah, that part too.
You'll have all of the feels. So yeah. Yep.
Hey, Patches,
Yes.
is that book Unsinkable Obsession, the Deep Sea and the Shipwreck of the Titanic?
Yes, it was very good.
Okay.
I liked it a lot.
Okay.
That sounds good.
I have a really strange irrational fear of shipwrecks. So Emily got this. Emily's a friend of mine from college, and she was paired with me for the Secret Santa, so she knew to get me this. And I think her note said something like, "Hope this doesn't make you as scared of ships." Yeah. Less afraid of broken ships under the ocean. I love the way she worded that. And there's no pictures inside, so I was good. I don't know what it is, just like shit underwater gives me the creeps. And
I get that. I'm
Like
scared of the ocean.
like the sharks and everything, super cool. It's their territory. It's like bears in the forest. Like it's just gonna happen. Like just big ass ships just sitting there to rot for some reason makes me want to crawl outside of myself. But no, it was really good. And Daniel Stone, I think he used to write for National Geographic, so he like knows what he's talking about. But I did find his writing a little sporadic. Like he definitely loses train of thought every once in a while, in the same vein of like casting that wide net, trying to make sure he's getting all the information. And it's not just about the Titanic, it is about warships as well. And I really did enjoy it though. I thought it was really fascinating. Did not help me with my fear, but it's good. It's all right.
My father was a maritime historian, so I've grown up with ships.
Oh, that's cool.
I was into that. Yeah, my mom's a silent film historian, but her father was in the Navy, and so actually my grandmother too. Both of them are in the Navy. So my mom's a Navy brat, and we've always had. Maybe that's some weird form. That's how I got it. Was for some reason I'm scared of the sinking ships. But no, that's super fascinating. I love that. Yeah, I wish
You'll never go on a cruise.
I did. You know what's crazy about that you say that? So in 7th grade, I went to like this really. So it sounds ridiculous. I went to this really prestigious, not really prestigious. It wasn't like private or anything, but I went to a charter school.
Okay.
And one of the trips was a cruise out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, to Jamaica, to the Cayman Islands, and we did it. And my dad has the same fear as I do, which we discovered one night, which was really funny, watching something on the Travel Channel, like a shipwreck popped up, and at the same time we both like cringed, and we were like, "You too," thank goodness it's not just me. And we went on this cruise, and yeah, apparently it is. We went on this cruise, and I was pretty petrified the whole time, but I think I was preoccupied. There was actually a lot of other kids on the ship, so I was, not focusing too much on it, but horrifying. You don't know when it's moving. You're just kind of shocked, and then like you look outside and you're going like a million miles an hour. But at the Cayman Islands, we did a shipwreck tour in this boat. But I remember the water being so murky. I really didn't you couldn't really see anything, which is crazy. But my mom always brings that up too. She's like, "We took you on a shipwreck tour." And I'm like, "I know, I don't know why." I don't know why, but it's just like, I guess it didn't really compute until later. But like seeing pictures of the Titanic, oh my God, it makes me sweat. Like I hate it. Like it's so grimy looking, and
it's eerie.
I think the sounds too, like of it creaking underwater, makes me want to crawl. I don't know what it is. It freaks me out to no extent. And my dad can back me up on this. I'm not crazy. But no, the book was very good. The book was very informative otherwise. I think he said something along the lines in the beginning. He actually starts the book off with like, how many shipwrecks do you think we have accounted for in the world? Like, how many do you actually think it is?
And, oh God, hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
So according to a UNESCO, UNESCO, thank you. Well, I'm still thinking about the Titanic. Estimate, the number of ships that sit in underwater graves wasting away year after year is an incredible 3 million. That we have accounted for, that we know of, that we've found. There's so much of the ocean we haven't explored, which is which in itself is absolutely terrifying.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. I would highly recommend it. It's a really interesting book. Some of the reviews definitely think it's a little too dry, but that's never really bothered me. I don't mind it. I don't mind history books being dry. That's just information. That's what it is. So yeah, but thank you guys so much for hanging out. I'm so excited for our January book. And again,
Me too.
you're welcome to keep chatting here if you guys want to, because again, we need to do a little palate cleanser and stop thinking of surgery for a second. But yeah, All the Living and the Dead is our January book, and I'm so excited. And it's actually fairly short, and the writing is, the text, the font is like pretty big for what it is. So I think it will be kind of a quick read. I'm excited.
I
I'm
want to
excited.
say,
This is my topic.
I think I got the Kindle version, and I want to say it was on like crazy sale. So let
Ooh.
me just check.
If it is, I love that people are on
Yes.
top of that too. So many people will put that in the messages tab, and that's how I got the let's see, it's half off on Kindle. It's only 15. And then there's of course Audible, but I love people post that on the messages
Yeah.
tab. That's how I got the Dead Mountain audiobook from Audible, because it's an Audible exclusive, which is our February book. It's an Audible
Right.
exclusive, and it was on sale for like $2. So I snagged it. Oh, I love the paperback is going to be released on Halloween of this year, of this book.
That's fun.
That makes sense. Did this come out on Halloween? No, this came out August 16th last year. Interesting. Okay, anyway, I'm very excited to read this though. I think it is so up the alley of the book club. Caitlin Dowdy is blurbed on the front, so we know it's going to be good. Some people have said that they have started it. I love this. There's been a couple people on TikTok say their New Year's resolution is to start reading more nonfiction, and they immediately bring up the book club, which just like fills me with so much joy. I love that.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited. I think we'll get a good turnout at the end of the month. And there's a reading guide on the book club's website.
I
If
saw
anybody
that.
needs that. Yeah, that seems to really, people love that. So I wait until the last minute, but if you would like a reading guide, we have that
This-
available.
The sale must have ended because I got it on Kindle for $3.
Oh,
Wow.
A couple days ago, but
Yeah.
it must have ended if you're saying it's 15 now.
it is. Yeah, it's 15 now, but some of those daily deals, you gotta snag them on the day.
Yeah, it was luck. I forget I have a Kindle half the time,
Me
but
too.
I'm trying not to spend as much money on books this year. So I've been trying to be better about looking at if there's a Kindle deal or whatever. And I was like, oh, score. So
Yeah, same. I mean, I
And
Public
completely-
library.
the library, Jessica, for sure, the library.
Yeah, I clearly like a physical book, and I'm really
too.
trying to be better about that this year. I'm just trying to be more frugal in general, but like I really need to stop just buying. I want to support local bookstores, I really do, but like I need to stop just going and like just buying stuff, because what if I don't, there's been so many that I just don't like, and then I have it. And I also really want to try buying secondhand way more. So if I
Mhm.
want, like, clearly the only way I'm listening to books these days is audiobooks. So I need to just stick with my subscriptions that I have. I do have Audible, I do have Scribd, and of course I have Libby. I just need to stick with that. It's like pep talk to myself. Stick with that, and then if you like the book, buy it in a couple months when it's on sale, or buy it secondhand. Like that's just how
Right.
you do things these days. I bought this.
I buy a lot of books on Thrift Books, and they have a lot of good deals, and they also have a fairly generous rewards program.
Mm.
So at least once a quarter, I have enough points to like get a free book.
Nice.
So they have a decent, that's a decent resource to not spend, full price or whatever. Well, and I'm the same way. It's like, I have to stop myself from going into Barnes and Noble because I know I'm not going to walk out of there without spending $100
It's so
or,
easy.
whatever.
And that's like
So
5 books.
yeah. So I'm just trying to be a little more
Yeah.
mindful of my money,
Yeah. Yeah.
like
When
we
I got
all
a
are.
Kindle, I was saving about $300 a year or so.
Yeah.
Because I was getting library books on Kindle.
Yep.
And as an old person, I can say when you get to a certain age, you don't want to keep buying books because you already have too much junk in your house.
Yes, that's the other thing.
Well, we live in a single wide trailer, so we're limited with space as it is. I mean, it's still decent size, but I've been restricted by my significant other to just these 4 bookshelves, and that's it. Anything more, you gotta get it out. So Libby is a lifesaver for sure. I love Libby. I have like 5 library cards connected to my Libby. I'm a resident of many cities. But I've noticed the best one that was legitimate for a little while was Los Angeles, because I lived there for 4 years, and that's Los Angeles LA County Library.
Yeah.
Everything. Because Iredell County, where I'm in North Carolina, not so much. Not so much. So
Have
yeah,
you read Susan Orlean's The Library book?
I have, and it's amazing.
Oh,
You
it
know
is
what?
amazing. It's about a fire at the LA County Library, and her writing is so good. It's like reading like butter or whipped cream. It's so smooth.
Yeah,
It's-
she's very, and it kind of goes back and forth. It tells the story of the fire and if it was arson or not. So I actually just saw it at Half Price Books in the true crime section.
It's
I
on
think
Kindle Unlimited.
yeah, because of the probably arson aspect of it. But then she interweaves just like all the things libraries do for the community.
Oh, yeah.
And what librarians do on a day-to-day basis and stuff. So it's really fascinating, and it's a 5-star book.
Yeah.
It's called The
Tiara,
Library
it's
Book.
called The Library Book, and it's by Susan Orlean.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah,
a point
good
where
one.
she interviews the people in shipping who send books from one branch to another. And the way it works is you don't send it from point A to point B. You send it from A to downtown to the main library, from there to point B. So
Right.
there's all this going back and forth. So she interviewed all these people in the shipping department, and every single one of them said, no, I don't read. I don't know about any of these books.
Great.
Mhm.
Yeah, this was recommended to me a while ago and I never read it. I think I heard it in another book club actually, which is interesting. Yeah, I've
It's
just added
really
this to my Kindle
beautiful.
library. What was everybody's, if you don't mind me asking, everybody's favorite book from last year? Did anybody have some standout reads?
Ooh, let me look.
Yeah,
I
have
did
to-
like Hell in the Heartland. I missed that discussion, but I did like that one.
It was so interesting. It was either everybody's favorite or least favorite. Like people either really, really vibed with it and loved what she did, or they just like hated her. And it was one of the coolest discussions we've had, because it's one of the few books where we had such a disagreement on whether the book was good or not. But like nobody got too heated, which was nice. But it was such a good discussion. I was just sitting there like, oh my God, I love this. Like people are going
I
at it.
quit reading it because I hated the people so much.
Well, you're not wrong there. But
That's valid.
the bonds she was able to make with people, I thought was really
I think
interesting.
that's something really important with true crime too, is not just to like be mad at the journalist for like poking her nose in these people's lives, but also the good journalists who told their story properly. You know?
Mhm.
Patches, you said you like science fiction. The best books I read in the last year were an 8-book series called The Invisible Library by Genevieve sorry, hold on. Genevieve Cogman, Cogman. And they're great because they're books about a library, and it's science fiction, and it's got romance and action and spy stuff, and it's just so cool.
And it's $2.99 on Kindle right now.
Well, there you go.
Buy with
You
one
can't-
click.
You can't beat that. I think my favorites were Ghost of the Tsunami and then Unmask Alice.
Unmask Alice was so good. That was one of
I
my
found that to be so fascinating. In fact, I just commented on somebody else's TikTok because they were talking about like amazing books, or I forget exactly. And she had a Go Ask Alice in her pile. And I was like, you know that book is bullshit. Like you need to go read Unmask Alice. The author is a con woman. And then all these people were liking my comment. But like I just thought that story was so fascinating. Who knew? I mean, that book had a hold on me as a kid. And then to find out all these years later that it's just kind of BS. And then like the exploitation and everything that was sort of taking place. It's icky.
Oh man.
People shouldn't read that book anymore. Kind of a
they
thing.
shouldn't. They should. And Ghost of the Tsunami was, I mean,
And Ghost of the Tsunami was so heartbreaking, but so interesting and so haunting.
And well written, really well written.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I loved Unmasked Alice was I actually was able to rank my books, and I did a top 13, and Unmasked Alice was number 2. My favorite of
Okay.
last year was How High We Go in the Dark by Sequoia.
Oh, I read that too. That was very good.
Oh my God, that book I haven't.
I need to
seen.
watch your whole video. I started it and I didn't finish.
It's a half hour, so yeah. So I couldn't shut
Wow.
up. I was sick, so it took me forever to like get through it because I was constantly like, trying to make sure I cleared my throat and wasn't sounding like I was talking out of a tin can. And yeah, so it's lengthy, no stress. But yeah, How High We Go in the Dark was my favorite of last year. And yeah, Unmasked Alice was great. I don't think I added anything else from the book club on it, actually, more than I think about it. But we read so many good books.
Yeah. And then my 2 sort of like authors that I had never read before that now they're like, okay, I have to read everything they ever wrote was Alice Feeney. I read Daisy Darker and I read His and Hers. I think she's amazing, her thriller writer. And then I had never read any Karen Slaughter. And I read Pretty Girls finally, and it's just like, holy shit.
That book feels like a gut punch, and then they just leave you for dead.
Yeah, so it's
many
like
books.
I gotta read everything, every word she wrote now.
I liked Daisy Darker. I haven't read His and Hers, but I really enjoyed, I liked Daisy Darker's twist, but I probably liked Rock, Paper, Scissors way more. I thought the twists in that were phenomenal.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. I just got that at half price the other day. I haven't read it yet.
Yeah.
His and Hers also has a really good twist, and I kind of called a little bit of Daisy Darker, but I think what I really liked about it was an obvious like homage to like Agatha Christie. So it really kind of had that kind of gothic, and I mean, a closed door murder is so fun. That's such a fun puzzle.
Right. I thought it was good. I liked it. And I love, if you follow Alice Feeney on TikTok, she has the cutest like little British accent. She's adorable.
Oh, I need to do that.
She's so cute. Well, okay, if you like books like that, one of my favorites too from last year that I read earlier in the year was Greenwich Park.
Oh, I liked that one too.
Whoa, this was good. I've actually really taken a step back from thrillers because I've been constantly disappointed with how gimmicky they can sometimes be. So I'm worried about thrillers, but Alice Feeney definitely has not disappointed yet. And Pretty Girls was a little bit too shock value-y to me.
It's very graphic.
Yeah, very graphic, and I kind of saw it coming, and not to be spoilery, but I just really hate when like the bad guy has this like 3-page monologue about his plans, and like I find thrillers to be so cookie cutter sometimes like that, but there've been a few that have really stood out. I really love The Butcher and the Wren by Elena Urquhart, who's the girl who does Morbid,
but I haven't read her book yet.
So, and I will tell you now, it ends on a cliffhanger and a half because she's making a series.
Okay.
So a lot of people are disappointed because at the end they're like, what the hell just happened? And then in the audiobook, she actually gets interviewed by her co-host to talk about the book. And she's kind of announces, this is going to be a series, by the way.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So good.
Yeah, I gotta read that next or soon, because I just feel like if I don't, it's already been out for a while, and if I don't read it, it's gonna get spoiled. I gotta get ahead of it. But Greenwich Park was so good. And then there was another book that came out that was sort of similar called The It Girl by Ruth